As we get closer to the season, we continue our march, examining the entire roster of the Seton Hall Pirates. Today, TJ Simpkins. Let's vibe. Welcome to the latest and greatest episode of Pirate Vibes on the Big East Energy Network. We're brought to you by Asabasa Spice. For 15% off your first order, go to asabasaspice.com. Use promotional code BIGENERGY15. Get 15% off your first order. Patrick, we just keep marching. I'm joined, obviously, by Patrick, my co-host now. Now that you're not my pseudo co-host, you're my real co-host. I guess I just jumped right into it. I apologize, Patrick. How are you?
Can't complain, Brian.
Today, we continue to march towards the season. Obviously, we're closing into the middle of September. November will be here soon enough. The Big East schedule is going to be released tomorrow. We're filming this on Wednesday, the 10th of November. So, obviously, we'll look forward to those, breaking down the schedule and when we're playing everyone. We're going to continue our transfer portal series. Today, TJ Simpkins, this kid out of Elon. I've seen a lot of people talk highly of this kid. On we'll start it where I kind of end it usually. On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for TJ Simpkins?
I'm going to say a 7. And I say this because I think you're talking about the type of player that Seton Hall did not have last year, in terms of somebody who had good athleticism and was established on both ends of the court, both offensively and defensively. I think the other thing you think about with a guy like Simpkins is having a motor. The motivation. See, part of the problem here was that when we picked up guys like Scotty Middleton and Garway Dual and Yassine Toumé and Emmanuel Okorafor, all had great reputations coming out of high school, but it did not look like any of them were taking the game as seriously as they had to when they actually put on Seton Hall uniforms. They weren't really putting out a maximum effort every time they got onto the court. And a lot of times the guys who were playing last year were playing as much for themselves at various points as you would hope that a guy like TJ Simpkins is not playing for himself. We talked in the few seconds we had before we recorded about the fact that last year he got to play with his brother TK, who transferred from Elon to Oregon. And on the one hand, TK is the more talented player. But there's also the idea that TJ has never really played by himself and necessarily for himself. He's always had to think about whether it's playing with his brother or playing with other teammates. He's always had to play within the team concept. And I think there is something to him not necessarily being the best player on the court and figuring out ways to contribute other than having to be, let's say, the lead scorer. That will come in handy and fit sort of the mindset that Shaheen Holloway wants to have on his teams.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about scoring. Obviously, he averaged 14.6 points last year, which is 4th on the team, which is mind-blowing to me as a Seton Hall, following Seton Hall, that 14.6 is 4th on the team. But the one stat that came out to me was he was actually the team leader for double-digit scoring on the team. So even though he wasn't the top scorer he had every game except 3 games last year that he double-digit scored, which shows consistency all the way. So that's what I'm excited about it, because, like you said, he wasn't. His brother was a little bit more ball dominant. He wasn't the guy, but he was consistent the entire time, and I think that fits perfectly with a ball dominant guard, Bud Clark. But before we go on any further, we got a 2-minute highlight video, and then we'll break down the film. All right.
start 2-2 against maybe not the easiest schedule, but
There you go. I know my video editing skills will get better as the season goes on, but college basketball scouting, shout out to them on the YouTube channel. Obviously, all the transfer portal guys are out there and have a highlight video like that. We kind of spiced it up. Patrick, the one thing that kind of stands out, we're going to start with his weakness, is the shooting, off the dribble shooting. Do you think that's an okay weakness with the offense that Shah is going to kind of run? Is that go ahead.
I think what you're looking at is how he fits in with the other pieces that he's going to be playing with. And we've talked about, at least the last 2 weeks, we've talked about AJ Stanton-McCray, Jacob Dar, who you talked about months ago, and to maybe a lesser extent, Elijah Fisher, in terms of, and Jashir Felton. He will be playing with guys who are better shooters. So his job will be to sort of fill the gaps a little bit and attack the gaps in defenses. One of the other things you notice in the other parts of that tape is he takes what the offense gives him. I think that's also a product of playing with a player who is a better player on your team, like his brother TK, knowing that, look, he doesn't want to be the guy responsible if his team doesn't score, because he knows in the back of his mind that the ball should be in the hands of better scorers. So hopefully Stanton McCray and Clark and some of the other guys who are going to be on the team are going to be putting up the points on a regular basis. I mean, you mentioned something which is surprising, which is that he was the 4th leading scorer on Elon, meaning that he has played with better scorers. And he just knows that, he has a recognition of what his strengths and weaknesses are, and is not going to feel the need to take over all of the offense because he knows there are going to be good pieces around him.
Yeah, definitely. His passing obviously was impressive. The assist rate was high up there. Obviously, that's a perfect fit, I think, on this offense, because you're going to have a guy that's going to move the ball with Bud Clark. He's going to kick it out to him, and he's going to find the open man real quick. And you saw that in a lot of zone defense on that highlight, where he was able to take it, make a quick decision, hit the right guy, and move on. So, moving the ball around. Let's talk defense. We know Shah is a defensive guy. 45 steals last year, which is more than almost 1.5 a game. How do you feel? Is that going to carry him a lot more with Shah than his offense? Do you feel like he's going to carry more? He's going to be more of a defensive guy for Shah?
I think that's something which helps you stay on the court when you're playing with Shaheen Holloway. That you're going to bring the defense, particularly when you have to deal with some of the offensive weapons that you see playing in the Big East. You've got to stop guys like Jocelyn Sannon of St. John's. You've got to stop guys like Solo Ball of Connecticut. You've got to stop a couple of the guys from Villanova, who I don't know if we'll be talking about when we do our episode, the Villanova episode we're doing later on. We're recording an episode with our Villanova podcast, Holy Nova, and their host, Matt Janis, later on. But a couple of those guys from Villanova can score. Almost everyone in the Big East has an elite wing scorer. And I think it's going to be Simpkins' main assignment to try to keep those guys in check, because Holloway, of course, loves playing man-to-man defense. I think he feels and felt uncomfortable last season when he had to play zone. And part of the reason he did that was because he had issues with depth, but also because he had issues with guys on the team who were really not great defenders. I mean, Garway Dual was a very good defender, Dylan Adewusu was a very good defender, but they weren't on the court enough for Holloway to have the confidence that he'd have somebody who could be a defensive stopper. And if there's one guy on this team who on the perimeter fits the definition of who can be a defensive stopper, it's TJ Simpkins. I'm just going to take a quick look at one of the leading analytics, evanmaya.com. If you're not following evanmaya.com, you're not really doing it right. If you look at the ratings for players in the what they call now the coastal, if you look at the ratings for players in the coastal conference, in terms of defense, Simpkins got a in terms of his defensive rating, Simpkins got a 147. I forgot what Simpkins' rating was last season. Very, very high rating in the CAA. So obviously there's a lot of respect being put. His defense actually ranked him higher than his offense did. So in that sense, he was one of the top defensive players in what's now called the Coastal Athletic Association. And defense travels. It's something where, once he watches some film on some of his opposition and maybe gets comfortable playing them at various points, I think Simpkins is one guy you can lock in, and you put him in a backcourt with Bud Clark, who's got tremendous quickness of hands and has an eye for getting a steal. And I think that can be a very deadly combination defensively. Now, granted, of course, Clark is only 5'10", so he's going to have some differences in height. But particularly in certain situations, you can mix and match certain players. You can bring in a Jasheer Felton to give you some height. And because the height, once you get past Clark and Stanton McCray, who I think is only 6'2" or 6'3", everyone else in that Seton Hall backcourt is going to be average or above average height between Simpkins, Dar, Felton, and Fisher. So the rest of those guys who are your proposed wings are all average or above average height. And particularly when you get a guy of Simpkins' defensive mentality out there, he can be the guy who can stop the ball at the point of attack and make it difficult, particularly, in close games. The other thing Simpkins does well to sort of pivot to something else is he's a very good free throw shooter.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about that with other players, but in terms of the difference, particularly late in games between winning and losing, you can keep a defensive stopper like Simpkins on the court and not fear that he's going to cost you 1 or 2 points every time you get into the bonus late in game situations. If he shoots at the free three-point percentage he shot last year at Elon, he will keep Seton Hall in the lead and allow Seton Hall to be able to put away games when they have leads late, because he won't allow teams to come back on us by missing foul shots.
Well, to piggyback off that, he also led his team in free throw attempts and free throws made last year as the fourth leading scorer. So that tells you he goes to the cup, and when he gets attacked and get fouled to the cup, he's knocking down his free throws. So I'm really excited. I don't know if you saw his game line against North Carolina last year. He had 18 points, right? This is one of his earlier games in his college career. He had 18 points, 6 of 12 shooting. He was 5 for 5 from free throw line in Chapel Hill, or are we calling it Chapel Bill? Is it Chapel Bill or Chapel Hill right now? And 5 rebounds. He's just a tremendous talent. I really think this is one of the under the radar ones. I think if you because he isn't that top scorer from Elon, right? He wasn't the top guy. Like sometimes you get lost in the weeds when you're playing in the CAA. But per 100 possessions, based off his stats, he averages 30 points per game. Think about that. When's the last time? I would be shocked to know when the last time Seton Hall scored. It was probably Richmond, right? There was no one from last year that you would say would be up there. Maybe
Coleman.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's hard to tell. I don't know how to put a statistic like that in any type of perspective. One of the things I think the takeaway here is that in terms of guys who are being sort of disrespected and have high ceilings, TJ Simpkins is definitely a guy who's got a much higher ceiling than people are going to give him credit for. Again, in part because he plays in his shadow. You look at it and you say, hey, his brother got to go to Oregon, who's a very top-level team, top end of the Big Ten, and you're like, all right, the little how much worse is the little brother? But when you see the two of them play with each other on the court, you realize that in part he's not as far behind, and the only reason that it looks like his stats are behind is because TJ gave a lot of deference to his brother TK on the court because he understood what it was like to play with a better talent. So I think that that's part of the team concept that Holloway builds upon, is that, to use an overused phrase, and I use it way too much myself, a guy like TJ Simpkins plays for the front of the jersey before he plays for the back of the jersey. And I think that was something that was definitely missing from last year's team, particularly in the Big East portion of the season. And I think that's something that will enable Simpkins and Seton Hall to play a lot better this season than they did last season.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Patrick. When we come back, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you here. We're gonna do it's kind of like a trash or treasure, but it's based off of a fan reaction, right? So I asked for fan input, and we're gonna kind of talk about it. We're gonna talk it out loud a little bit. All right, when we come back. Welcome back to Pirate Vibes on the Big East Energy Network. All right, Patrick, we're going to try something new. We got a lot of comments, mailbag set. You want to call it mailbag? I'm still workshopping that name because I want something pirate, maybe the plank. I don't know. This comes from Trey Parker on Twitter, and ironically, it's a Trey Parker question. Trey Parker will average 10 points per game. We're not going to call it trash or treasure. We got some feedback saying don't use the word trash for players, whatever. On this take, do you see him making 10 points per game this season? Me personally, no. So I'm going to toss it over to you.
It would take a lot for him to get there. It's not as if on his own, if you didn't have everyone else on this roster, he could find a way to get 10 points if he gets starter level minutes. Unfortunately, he's behind so many other guards in this rotation. Bud Clark, AJ Stanton-McCray. We talked about TJ Simpkins, who he's going to be behind. He's probably going to be behind Shaheen Felton as well. So he's got too many guys who have to fall back or get injured for Parker to see the court a significant period of time. Now, again, when we talked about Parker a couple of months ago, we noted that he's got good shooting skills. He's got the tools to be a 10-point player game. Unfortunately, other guys have proven it. And we talked a little bit about this earlier in the episode when we talked about guys who were on last year's team who sat the benches for power conference teams last year and didn't really deliver. And Parker, while he wasn't as highly regarded when he was in high school, he's still someone who's not used to getting significant playing time. Whereas Simpkins, Stanton-McCray, and Elijah Fisher have all played starter level minutes and right now project to get starter level minutes in this rotation. So there is a path. Unfortunately, a lot of things have to go wrong, and some of them we may not want to go wrong.
Yeah.
Trey Parker end up being a 10-point-a-minute guy. Or 10.
Yeah, and we talked about this. Defensively also, you can't play Bud. Even if Trey Parker tends to, he is an off the ball guy and a guard's body, right? He's 6'1". He is more of a scoring point guard. You can't play him and Bud Clark defensively at the same time. So for him to get the opportunities, Bud Clark is going to have to take either a step back, and we all know Bud Clark is the centerpiece. Like I think everyone that follows Seton Hall knows that Bud Clark is the centerpiece of this season. They will be successful. Bud Clark is successful. Is that a hot take, or is that? I feel like that is set in stone. If Seton Hall is going to be successful, it's because Bud Clark has taken off.
I don't know if Shaheen Holloway even really wants to put that much pressure on Clark. I mean, it's obvious he was the first guy he recruited in the transfer portal. He's someone who everything points to him being the point guard and the guy who's going to be the big difference between what Seton Hall was last year and what Seton Hall is this year. But again, Holloway always factors in for people that have setbacks. He also factors in for sometimes a player like Clark might get, too full of himself or too involved in everything and become too inwardly focused. And maybe a guy like Parker or Mike Williams, who came in about the same time as Parker coming in from LSU, maybe asked to at least take some minutes on for Clark in order to sort of reset Clark at times. And, depending on how things work out, it's not unheard of for somebody who we thought was, let's say, our 9th or 10th guy on the bench to emerge as a starter. That thing happens in basketball. It doesn't happen on every team, but it's happened enough for it to have happened. It's not one of those situations like if I had 2 nickels for some time that happened, I have 2 nickels more than I thought I'd ever have for that situation. So, I don't necessarily. I think Parker plays an important role, not only as sort of an insurance policy for Bud Clark, but also someone you can develop in the future on the off chance that Clark really has a breakout season, and then you need someone who's ready to come in and play the point guard for seasons in the future.
Now you're talking my love language there. If Bud Clark takes off and you're developing your second point guard or the successor in Trey Parker, because I think Parker's got a great game. He's got a ton of hops. Offensively, he's got a great game. He earned more minutes, and we talked about this when he first signed on. He earned more minutes as the season went on at North Carolina State. Yes, I know North Carolina State was a dumpster fire, but he still was earning the trust of a guy that was about to get fired. So you're saying Trey Parker not going to average 10 points a game, because I agree with you 100%.
I think it's unlikely, but again, that should not discourage anyone from being somewhat excited about Trey Parker being here, because he's also a type of player who we didn't have last season, and is someone you may or may not need if you're going to go from a 7-win team to maybe a 14-win or even greater than that this season.
Definitely. All right, Patrick, we did another one. TJ Simpkins. We're going to talk the schedule later this week, because this episode's coming out Monday. Look forward to another one. We're going to Willard's return. When do we play UConn? When do we beat UConn at home? All those important dates will now be released tomorrow. You excited for that? I think you put on your Twitter, it's Christmas, right?
I think for fans, to a certain extent, it's Christmas, because everyone talks. I mean, even what got leaked out yesterday and today caused a lot of people to speak. And look, if the Villanova game that we're going to be talking about, that we talked about last week, wasn't leaked out Tuesday afternoon, we're not putting a podcast together with Holy Nova or we didn't put a podcast together with Holy Nova to discuss the game that got leaked out. I mean, I don't know if I really like the idea. I know the NFL does it, and it's annoying when the NFL does it, because you want everything. You want to be able to break it down all in one, as opposed to like, all right, we know opening game is, let's say, against Washington. Yeah. I want to know who week 12 is against and week 13 is against, and so on and so forth. So it's great that we know, what we know right now is that Seton Hall is going to open up conference play up at Providence the Friday before Christmas on December the 19th. And then 2 days before Christmas, will be the Big East home opener against Villanova. But, again, as you said, when do we play Connecticut? When do we play St. John's? And when do we play the matchups against the teams who fans are going to be the most excited to see in 2025? And now it's all those games are going to be in 2026.
Yeah. Well, tune in Thursday of this week. This is tricky for me and Patrick. We're filming on the 10th, but we're really talking about the 17th. Tune in next Thursday, the 17th, 18th, the 18th, and we will break down Seton Hall's conference schedule. This has been another episode of Pirate Vibes. Stay true, stay blue, and vibe on.
Ahoy there!